So, as you notice, I'm not talking about meditation. What I'm doing is I'm teaching you to create a mind body connection. We can only do that through awareness and our feelings, because feelings is the language of our body. And the more we tap into those feelings, we're starting to create a different conversation with our reality. Hey guys, it's Ash from the Awakened State. So today I wanted to talk about something that's really been on my heart around the mind-body connection and its relationship to the chakras. So let's dive in. So what I really want to talk about is this fascination with meditation and thinking that meditation fixes all of our problems. And this is something that comes into conversations with my clients a lot. And it's where we feel that meditation is like the ultimate fix for our problems. And what happens is what I really see is this really connects back to the chakras. And in the spiritual community, we often have this obsession with the higher chakras, understanding the crown chakra, so we have that full-fledged enlightenment experience, and understanding the third eye and opening the third eye so that we can have psychic abilities, and all of this emphasis on the higher chakras. So we think that we have to excessively meditate. We feel like we have to excessively get into that headspace, and to a point where a lot of us are experiencing spiritual burnout. So I have another video that goes into spiritual burnout, but to just keep it simple, what happens is we're overcompensating in our higher chakras, and instead of getting grounded and rooted in our body, we're allowing ourselves to get really caught up in our heads. We're dissociating from the body, and in turn we're fixating on this chasing of either enlightenment or our vision or our goals. And I'm here to just tell you that this thinking is actually incredibly backwards, because a lot of us feel that we have a meditation issue, and then we beat ourselves up for not meditating, or we beat ourselves up for not doing the thing. And the reality is half of the time what we're not facing is a meditation issue. It's actually an embodiment issue. Because the reality that really, what is really going on here is we have a mind-body disconnect. So we're overcompensating in our higher chakras, but we're undercompensating in our lower chakras. So if you've never heard of the chakras, basically our chakras illustrate every aspect of our life. And I like to call it's like you have buckets for particular areas of your life, and this shows up in your chakras. So your root chakra is around money, and your solar plexus is around your identity, and your heart chakra is around your relationships, and so forth. So what is really going on is we have this strong emphasis on overcompensating in the higher chakras. And what we're doing is the mind is disconnecting from the body. So a lot of my teachings are rooted in the mind-body connection for this reason, because it's easy to fall down the rabbit hole of excessively meditating, excessively being in our heads, excessively overthinking, overanalyzing, and being in this place where we're actually rooted in fear because we're overcompensating in our higher chakras. We're in our head, but we're not enough in our body. So I've been really learning a lot how the mind-body connection really works. And it's funny because so much of us put so much emphasis on these higher chakras and opening the third eye and reaching spiritual enlightenment and all these things, but we're actually highly neglecting the lower chakras. And the lower chakras teach us about manifestation work. And when we have undercompensated lower chakras, this is a good reason for why we're not actively manifesting well. Because what's going on is we're in the vision, we're dreaming and fixating and fantasizing and all of that, but we're not rooting and grounding into the embodiment of our vision. We're not in the energy of being in our bodies. And a lot of people don't like to be in their body. Like, yeah, we're in our body, but we often are checking out, we're dissociating, we're hiding out in social media, in Netflix binges, and we're not allowing ourselves to be present with our bodies. So here's the thing is most people think that they have a meditation issue, but they're actually wrong. What they have is an embodiment issue. They need to be getting back into their body. And by getting back into the body, now we're suddenly aware. Now we're suddenly conscious. Now we're suddenly less reactive. So with everything going on in the world currently, it is no better time than now to work on those lower chakras and to really get into the body, because that's really the heart of manifesting. It's also the heart of really becoming more conscious. We cannot get up here into the spiritual realms if we're not grounded and anchored in our bodies, because that is our connection to higher consciousness. That is our connection to higher self, higher truth, soul, whatever you want to call it. When we are not grounded and anchored into our body, we're more reactive and more prone to be in the fight flight response. So what really happens is it's almost as if we're ungrounded. And what that means is when we're ungrounded, we are overcompensating in our higher chakras and we're disconnected from our body. We're dissociating from our body, which is basically what we're doing is we're creating all of this disconnection from our body. So what does that really look like? Well, this can look like the person who is really caught up in fight or flight mode. It's the person who's really caught up in fear and living in the fear mind, living in lack, living in scarcity. And it's really cool to start to understand this, because you can start to see that the mind-body connection is really what creates real change, because it's in the habits and the consistency and the awareness that we start to actually change our reality. So if we're not getting into our bodies, we're being unconscious and we're starting to play on autopilot. And then we're more reactive, we're more emotionally reactive, we're more prone to venting and franticness and feeling pressured and overcompensated and all of these things, because we're rooted in emotional chaos. And emotional chaos is really our past narrative, our past identity. So what the lower chakras really do is they teach us to get out of that and instead start changing the script. They teach us to really get clear on being snapped back into our bodies, so we have the awareness, so that we are more aligned and more tuned in, so we can differentiate between what is our thoughts and what is their thoughts, what is our opinions, what is their opinions. And instead of being like this, I always call it the emotional sponge, what we're doing is we're choosing to be in active choice, conscious awareness. And when we're in awareness, we're bringing those unconscious patterns into conscious awareness. So when it comes to the saying of meditation fixes all of your problems, and I see it in so many books and so many things, and it's like, yes, meditation is amazing, but if you are not also including the body, then you're kind of just on a hamster wheel. And you're kind of just chasing the result. And you're in this place where you're actually not really getting anywhere, because you're not taking the action you need to take, because you're in a reactive pattern. And in that reactive pattern, you're not allowing yourself to get conscious and clear enough to change and shift the problem. And I see this so many times, and it's like, it's amazing, because we don't understand that the mind-body connection is what helps us establish habits. It's what helps us establish consistency. It also is what helps establish a routine. And so the more we tune back into those lower chakras versus the higher chakras, we're actually beginning to change our reality. So how do we start to do that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Like, Understanding the root chakra is about getting yourself in your body, in your body. So a lot of us are checking out. Like a lot of us are completely dissociated from our emotions. We're completely disconnected from ourselves. So getting present and getting in the body is about movement. It's about doing things that help you snap back into the body. So when we begin to work with the root chakra, what we're really aiming for is getting into our bodies. And as we get into our bodies, we're becoming more aware of our surroundings, more aware of what's going on, more aware of our habits if we want to create change. Really, awareness is that first step. It is the catalyst to transformation, because without awareness, we're unconscious. So in the root chakra, it's all about what brings you back into your body. What creates movement to snap you back in your body? Like maybe that's a walk, maybe that's doing house chores, maybe that's getting, unplugging and having like a day off from social media, have more exercise, walks, whatever. And that really helps us. It's a very simple thing to do, and it may seem tedious, but if you look at the majority of America, we are constantly fixated on our phones. We are constantly watching TV. We're absorbed in the news right now, especially right now. There's so much going on that we're feeding into our reality that we don't know left from right or reactive pattern from not reactive pattern. When we get aware and bring more mindfulness into our life, then we can start to create real change. Then we can start to create real shifts. So getting into the body is one of the first steps. The next thing is in the sacral. It's about getting in touch with how you truly desire to feel. So the beginning steps of really understanding the sacral is it's about our emotional identity. Now, a lot of us have grown up in a world where we didn't learn how to emotionally regulate. So getting in touch with our feelings might feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. Magic happens in the uncomfortable. And the more we get into our bodies, now we have that awareness piece. In the sacral, we get in touch with our feelings. And in our feelings, we're learning to tune into how do we deeply desire to feel. Then what helps us bring in those feelings right now? These are some powerful questions to ask ourselves. With everything going on in the world, it's important to tune into your personal compass right now and really ask yourself, well, how do I actually want to feel right now? How do I deeply desire to feel? And by asking yourself that, and then we're looking into like, well, I want to feel more abundant right now. So what helps me bring in those feelings of abundance right now? Well, I can start to focus on the abundance I currently have in my life. I can start to focus on the abundance of the trees or the people, or just playing into that energy is so key, because it teaches us to get into the feeling. The more we get into the feeling, we're embodying our vision. So another thing with the sacral is it's all about really getting expressive with ourselves, getting back into that sense of pleasure. So as you notice, I'm not talking about meditation. What I'm doing is I'm teaching you to create a mind-body connection. We can only do that through awareness and our feelings, because feelings is the language of our body. And the more we tap into those feelings, we're starting to create a different conversation with our reality. And the final thing is the solar plexus. And the solar plexus is all about our identity, our sense of ego, our sense of personality, our self-esteem, how we put ourselves together and out into the world, how we take action in the world, and really getting clear on how do we feel about ourselves? How do we feel about our sense of purpose, our sense of identity, our sense of really bringing in that energy of how do you personally feel about yourself? And that touches a little into the heart chakra, but really the solar plexus is teaching you how you show up is how you will take action. So if we're not tuned into those lower chakras, our energy is going to be all over the place because we're not tapped in to our bodies, our feelings, and our actions. So starting to bring awareness to all of that is really going to help you get out of this mentality of meditation is going to fix my problems. And instead, you're getting into the body, you're getting into awareness, you're getting into the feeling. And by getting into the feeling, you get into the action. And see, we're now creating a different conversation that's going to start changing your life, that's going to start changing the conversation that you're creating in your reality. And the more we step into that level of embodiment, we're starting to create a different conversation. And that different conversation is going to mirror back into your external world. So finally, we think it's about meditation. We think it's about the upper chakras, but in reality, a lot of us need deep healing in our lower chakras. And the more we start to cultivate that and begin to embrace that, then we start to really change things, because the inner creates the outer. Your internal reality must create the external world. So the only way to create radical shifts and radical changes is to start changing the internal, to start changing the internal environment, the internal experience. And the more you get into that energy, you start to really get into a entirely different energy. And this is the radical truth of learning to connect with the mind-body connection and begin healing those lower chakras. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode at The Awakening Path. I'm Ashley. You can find more about me at theawakenstate.net. If you have any questions, please drop them below. I love absolutely hearing from you guys. Love ya.